Hello and welcome to the build-up here on Balls in partnership with Ladbrokes. Every week we bring you the biggest events of the sporting weekend and lots to look ahead to this weekend. We're going to talk rugby with Stephen Ferris, but Stevie, lots to look back on as well because Ireland beat the All Blacks, third time ever. You know, you can get used to these kind of things and almost not treat them as a big deal. But look, we're going to talk about this one because I don't know if we've ever seen a performance like that from Ireland. We've beaten New Zealand before, backs against the wall, brilliant defensive performance in 2018. But the performance that we saw on Saturday, I'm still struggling to believe it, really, because after 20 minutes, you're like, we are dominating, absolutely dominating New Zealand here.
Yeah, from minute 1 to minute 80, like Ireland with the better side, and it just shows you the class and quality of New Zealand when they do get their opportunities. Like Ireland could easily have lost that game. Somehow they could have lost that game, but they were the much better side throughout, played some scintillating rugby. The question marks were always, okay, we play against Japan, we win by 60 points, we play this brand of rugby, very expansive, very clinical, everybody's comfortable with the ball in hand, but hold on, can we do this 7 days later against the All Blacks when they come to visit? And the answer was yes. You know, they answered so many questions, and I know we have chatted, Mick, about Andy Farrell in the past, even in the summer series, about, you know, what direction is this Irish team going to be going in. Well, I think that's the blueprint over the last 2 weekends, is that, you know, this expansive game, this all options, everybody is comfortable with ball in hand, changing the point of contact, willing to offload, willing to take a 50-50 chance that we never even spoke about, Mick, when Joe Smith was in charge. Yeah. And it's very, very, very refreshing, like really refreshing. And everybody walking out of that stadium was buzzing, not because we beat the All Blacks once again, but because the manner that we did it in and the style of rugby that Ireland are trying to play. And I think other countries and talk about the window of going into Rugby World Cups, and in previous years Ireland have never done that. The World Cups come alive and then Ireland feel their way into it, where Johnny Sexton a couple of weeks ago was talked about building for this World Cup, building for France, Paris 2023, and what a foundation to start on over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny enough, I was thinking about the Irish soccer team, the Republic. Like, the ongoing conversation is always like, you know, do we have the players to play in a nicer style? And that's been a debate that's been going here for years, but especially in the last couple of years. And it's funny, I was thinking about that as related to the rugby team. We know we have world-class players. It's been that case for a long time, but we've always played in, you know, to varying degrees. You know, in Eddie O'Sullivan's time, we threw it around a little bit, but there's always been a slightly attritional style, and, you know, we revert to type a lot, I would say. Under pressure, we go one-out runners and so on and so forth. When, you know, the way the game has gone this year, maybe since the Lions tour, and, you know, Eddie Jones reinventing the way England is playing and you know, trying to get away from that style that's been there, the box-kicking, hard-hitting style of the last couple of years, you're like, shit, does that mean that the game is going to go away from us? It's going to go in the wrong direction from what Ireland are good at? And from what I could see is that Farrell, for what we could see in November anyway, I said, no, let's go with it. But it's almost the first time a coach has gone beyond the trend and gone kind of like further on, if you know what I mean. And it's so refreshing to see. And from what I could see in the last 2 weeks anyway, it does seem like the players are saying, yeah, we've told you, we're able to do this. We've known this for a long time. You know, we're as good at rugby players as anyone else. And that must be an amazing feeling in the camp, that you can go out and express yourself and not look like you're not as good as the New Zealands or the Englands or the Australias or whoever.
Well, Mick, like, would you not rather expend your energy with the ball in hand and making carries and running support lines and being options? Would you not rather expend energy that way rather than chasing kicks and you know, having huge line speed at certain parts of the pitch that just is so energy zapping, and you know, not having the ball for long periods? Like, Ireland are a much better side when they have the ball in hand, and with some really creative players, with some really skillful players. And we may not be the biggest, baddest South African team like getting into the last World Cup. We all seen the picture on social media, you know, the size of those guys. We may not have that, but we do punch above our weight, and we do have a bit of size. You look at the front row and Furlong, Porter and Kelleher, like they are physical specimens, but yet they have the subtleties. They have the ability for that extra inside or outside pop. They can beat a beat a defender and get an offload away, where other teams don't have that. So I think Andy Farrell has taken the last, since he's been in charge, to figure out exactly what certain individual players are good at. And like Caelan was unbelievable the weekend. Like, he was unbelievable. But he didn't start in the last Six Nations, you know? And a couple of other players as well, like Hugo Keenan for me is just nailed on, starting 15. I know he started a lot of games for Ireland, but I think that's another performance by him, which is just said to Andy Farrell, look, I'm your number one, I'm your cement at the back, like, I'm not going to make any mistakes, I'm a really good counter-attacking threat. So yeah, I think the last couple of years has been a really good opportunity for Andy Farrell to feel his way through the squad, and I wouldn't be surprised. I know I said it live on RT at the weekend, or 2 weekends ago when they were playing Japan. I would not be surprised if those 23 players that took the pitch against Japan and against New Zealand were the 23 players that took their place in the first match of the Rugby World Cup in 2023. I think they're that good. Maybe Johnny Sexton is he durable enough? You talk about backing up week in and week out, and there's 2 pretty big games, and now he's out of action for 4 to 6 weeks. So that's a talking point on its own. But yeah, lots of players and more players this week going to be given opportunity to show if they can also fit into Andy Farrell's game plan.
Yeah, it's funny you say that actually about like the players that's such a marker that they've laid down now that that could be the thing. I was thinking about the back row in particular because there's questions overall 3 really. There's a conversation there because the fact that we're putting Josh Flier in that category now when it feels like his entire career he's been, it's like, why is this guy being selected? Because we've got this guy, and all these, like, at Leinster alone, we've got 4 guys chasing him. But his performance just stepping up all the time, and I thought he was great at the weekend. But Conan is obviously, we've had lots of conversations about him since, going on since the Lions and so on and so forth, and how good he's been, and he's established so much as an 8. But Doris had that moment, I think, this week we've all been waiting for. Obviously, he was, cut down a little bit last year with the concussions and so on, scary stuff. But I hope you don't mind me saying that, but there was times he reminded me of you at your best at the weekend, that I was thinking it's something that Ireland have been so missing in that number 6 position for a long time now. But he gave that kind of performance that was like, you know what, it doesn't have to be Doris versus Conan. That's a perfect back row as it is. And, having someone like Pete coming off the bench or whatever is going to be great there. We have the option of Tyke Byrne and so on. But it's the type of back row that, you can build a foundation on, to your point, and build towards the World Cup. It did feel like that balance that we haven't had in a long time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And like, I played number 8 the whole way through underage stuff, 19s, 21s. Like, I was playing number 8 when Johnny Sexton was playing like half for Ireland under 21s. Yeah. But I couldn't nudge my way in there. Number 1, because Jamie Heaslip was ahead of me in the number 8 jersey. So they were like, we think Stevie should be, given an opportunity. Okay, we'll play him at 6. I was a half decent line-out option, nothing like Peter O'Mahony. We know how good he is in the set piece. But like somebody like Caelan Dories, has played number 8, so much in his career, and now he's finding himself in the number 6 jersey, and I bet you he's absolutely loving it. He's finding himself in the wider channels. He's getting the ball in hand. He's a threat every time he touches the ball. He reads the game extremely well, a lot better than I probably read the game. And having somebody like Jack Conan, like I had Jamie Heaslip beside me, gives him, a lot of confidence that he's going to do his job and not give up any opportunity. So yeah, Josh van der Flier, I've been so impressed with Josh. Like, I was probably one of the lads beating the drum 4 or 5 years ago that he's been talked about all the time, and he's playing it pretty consistently for Leinster, but he wasn't taking my breath away, but with his performances. And then, I don't know what's happened, but somebody's had a quiet word in his ear about how to carry the ball. Like, his ball carrying, the way he comes on to the pace, the intensity, that's something you coach from, mini rugby, coming onto the ball at pace. If you need an injection, you call Josh van der Flier to come around the corner and come onto the ball. And it's head down, and it's not running straight into lads. He's running it, the branches on the trees, and getting those easy yards. And I think he's been inspirational in Aaron's performances. and is probably the glue at the minute that's holding it all together in the back row. And I don't think he's as raw and powerful and as aggressive as maybe Sean O'Brien from 5-6 years ago when he was playing for Ireland, but he's got other attributes to his game which really fit into the way Ireland want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk actually. I won't go into individual performance now, but this is obviously something that's been in the process for a while, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you about. But Andrew Porter's performance at the weekend, going from in a new position, basically lasted 75 minutes against the All Blacks, and just I don't know. I don't know if it was Leinster's idea or if it was Andy Farrell's idea talking to Leinster or whatever, but to get the most out of having somebody like Porter and Furlong, it was a stroke of genius. But I think what we saw at the weekend was like, it's the type of stroke of genius that's going to pay off in a really tangible way, in that we're going to have the majority of time with these two world-class guys on the pitch together. And Porter's performance, it hasn't dropped for moving position. If anything, from what I could see anyway, just last weekend, not so much, not to analyze it in too much detail through the Leinster match and all, but it seems to have increased. He seemed to be even a bigger presence around the field, especially.
Yeah, his capacity for the workload that he's given, like in that match, 75 minutes, and I know there's been a few clips floating around of potential line breaks for New Zealand, and Andrew Porter covering 40 or 50 metres in 5 or 6 seconds, covering his teammates' backside. I was really disappointed with him missing out on the Lions tour. That was a huge, huge disappointment. For him personally, and for Irish fans and for pundits and commentators like ourselves, and it's just brilliant to see him bounce back. And yeah, he's leapfrogged Cian Healy, who's been around a very, very long time. But he's just he doesn't seem to tire. He just seems like just at a consistent level the whole time. And even like New Zealand's try, Cody Taylor made that break. And like Porter turns and sprints, and he was never going to get him, but he tries to get an ankle tap, and he was maybe half a yard away. And he just that never give up attitude. And I think lastly, Mick, it helps when you have a guy who's 120 kgs, very powerful, quads on him like Quadzilla, like he is a huge man, and by all accounts he brings a bit of something different to the squad as well. He's a wee bit out there as a character, which I love, and I think his hairstyle maybe sums that up. But no, it's brilliant to see Andrew Porter going well, and he's that front row. Geez, you could nearly be saying that's a potential Lions front row in a few years' time.
Yeah. Let's leave the Lions for a little while. I don't think I can bring myself back into.
Just on the Lions, how bad was the Lions tour in terms of the quality of rugby?
I know.
Then, not so far down the track, we find ourselves talking about this unbelievable style of rugby that not only Ireland are playing, other teams are trying to play as well. And it's fresh, really fresh to see, and hopefully that continues on.
Can we bring, I don't want to be a fly in the ointment, but we should bring kind of some, November perspective into it. And this is a New Zealand team that's been on the road for a long time, and that might not be the New Zealand team of the last 10 or 15 years anyway, even if they were at their freshest and at their best. It's also, I think it's fair to say that it was one of Ireland's best performances that we've ever seen, and they should have won by more than 9 points, and they probably should have hammered the All Blacks. And that in itself is worth celebrating. But I'm just wondering if New Zealand aren't quite at their best, and one thing that I would worry slightly about is that if Ireland are playing this style of rugby, there's going to be a sense in November that opposition teams aren't going to be ready for it. But when Pivac and Jones and all these guys, Townsend, get a look at this on video come February and March, we're going to have to continuously evolve it. And Ireland will have to continuously improve if they are going to kind of reach this level over the next, not just few months, but as you say earlier, everything is looking towards 2023 at this stage.
Yeah, and there's going to be opportunities for different lads to get ahead out, and it's all building towards this 2023 Rugby World Cup in Paris. How it's all going to unfold, I'm not too sure, but it's all very exciting, and the lads. at the minute, Mick, are playing some awesome rugby, and it's a joy to watch. I completely forgot your question because I was focusing so much on the odds in the back of my head that are going to pop up for this match, because I called it so right last week. James Lowe scoring the first try at 14-1. And then it just popped into my head. I was like, what the hell did Mick just ask me? So, Mick, what was your question?
No, we'll get to Argentina in a second. What I was saying, though, was that, like, we're playing a completely new style, Stevie. So it's like, if New Zealand weren't going to be ready for that because we hammered Japan. Likewise, Argentina aren't going to be really have time for it now. But if Wayne Pivac and Eddie Jones and Gregor Townsend look at this on tape for the next 3 months, they're going to be ready for it by the Six Nations. And, you know, any flaws that might be in that system that weren't exposed by New Zealand, even though they got 2 fairly easy tries in the game, so on, there's going to have to be constant improvement here. This isn't the final hurdle by any means.
No, definitely not. And, you know, other teams are going to come up with ways of shutting down this Irish attack. That sounds great. You know, just talking about the Irish attack all the time is brilliant. But yeah, like, you know, I know Eddie O'Sullivan's been quite vocal on how to shut down attacks with the up and in defence. You know, lots of shooters. You know, that's why international coaches get paid big bucks to come up with problem solving. And there's a lot of problems for the opposite teams when Ireland have the ball in hand. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it pans out that way. I think as well, a lot of people, you know, straight away, you know, the All Blacks, why didn't they not play that well? And, you know, that was their 14th test match since, I think, the 3rd of July or 16th of July, something like that. You know, playing against Australia, Argentina, the Rugby World Cup winners, South Africa. I know that a couple of games, 100 points against the USA, but flip that over, Irish boys, you know, plenty of rest, 120 minutes of game time for Leinster or for Ulster, who might have been at that stage. And then, you know, they play against Japan a couple of times. I think that was their 4th test match, 2 against Japan, 1 against USA, and then they faced the All Blacks. So much fresher, and I definitely think that showed, because the All Blacks just ran out of gas, and as much as they tried to tackle their hearts out, you know, Ireland had their number.
Yeah. Let's get on to the Argentina game then, anyway, so you can talk about the odds. You were there, obviously, pitch side. We were all watching you with Eddie and Jamie Heaslip. The atmosphere was unbelievable. Do you think there's, like, it's hard to imagine that people won't come out this weekend again, like, after seeing that. But I suppose we'll have to wait and see what the team is and so on. The ticket sales have apparently been quite slow.
Yeah, they've been very slow, haven't they? And, like, New Zealand are obviously the biggest show in town. We know that. And everybody, friends, family, Stevie, have you got 2 tickets for Ireland versus New Zealand? Yeah. Nobody's really asked me for 2 tickets versus Argentina. And that's sad to see, but that's the way it is. Everybody's, you know, what is it, Nick, now? Well, the tickets are €100 each for the Argentina game. Like, you bring a family of 4 and go out for 4 or 5 pints afterwards and a bit of food. You know, €600 or €700 later, you're on your way just back down the road just for one day out. So I think a lot of people have dipped into their pockets and into their savings to come and support Ireland, and hopefully they continue to do that this weekend against Argentina. It's going to be really interesting to see team selection. I'd love to see Simon Zebo back, getting a run out at 15. Gavin Coombs, I know he's been sick a little bit over the last few weeks. Maybe he gets a start in the back row. If he's not starting, he'd definitely be on the bench. At hooker as well, Dan Sheehan, will he get a start, or will they go with Rob Herring to give him a bit of game time after coming off the bench last week? And last but not least, Joey Carbeck, Johnny Sexton's out injured. I know Jack Hardy's been drafted in. Or will they go with Harry Byrne to start? So, yeah, a few big decisions for Andy Farrell. I don't think he's going to make 15 changes. He could. But do you know what? If they lose this game, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, because you get the biggest scalp ever, and you played brilliant rugby for the last couple of weeks, and that's the perfect excuse for Andy Farrell to say, look, I was giving guys opportunity to see how they reacted and how they get on. But I don't think he'll make as many changes as people think.
Can I ask about that, actually, as the usefulness of it? Like, you want to give guys caps and experience and so, and look, the opposition feeds a lot into that in terms of your experience. But if you want to bring on Sheehan and you want to bring on, you know, whoever it might be, Coombs, right? Is it not important that they play with guys who are going to be there when the Six Nations comes around, rather than a full team of reserves, say, almost like an old school A team? like it's important to mix it up a little bit and make sure that you do have Conan or Doris, you do have, you know, James Ryan, you do have Tyke Furlong, etc. in that team mixed in with a few guys that you're trying out.
Yeah, like I totally agree with you, Mick. If you're changing somebody in the back row, you change one, like so you don't, you know, try and keep the combinations there. Again, in the second row, maybe change one. Front row, you know, of course you could change the hooker if you wanted, but yeah, not too much disruption, because then when it actually comes to game time, you know, people are trying to learn their roles and responsibilities throughout the week, and when there's loads of chopping and changing, then that can filter into how you actually go during the match, and there can be a little bit of confusion, and then at times it can get sloppy, and then you start to try and chase, and then when the pressure comes on, what do? You revert back to type, and Ireland's revert back to type is usually going back to the box kick and trying to apply pressure that way. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Like Argentina, like Ireland have won 4 out of their last 5 against Argentina. Argentina winning one of those, but in those 4 games, like the points difference in the win was less than 11 points in those 4 games. The handicap is 13 points in this game, and yeah, I think Argentina are good value for that. They're off the back of a pretty comprehensive victory against Italy, 37 points they racked up. They've some big hitters, you know, Kramer, I know, plays in the back row / second row. The other lads there that, you know, wear their heart on their sleeve, play with huge energy and emotion, and they're not just going to come down to Dublin and roll over. They're going to put up a huge fight. And yeah, I actually, if there's depending on team selection, I certainly think that Argentina are going to be, you know, plus 13 points. I think that's the bet for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how it goes. Looking forward to it. I think it's something like I often find that the rugby season, Stevie, needs a kickstart for just in the general consciousness, you know. And I think there's nothing better than a kickstart like that to beat New Zealand, and then people are going to be glued to this week, and then hopefully getting into the Heineken Cup over the course of December all the way through to the Six Nations. It's the kickstart that the season really needed. But if you're going to be watching games this weekend, that's on Sunday. Saturday is an unbelievable round of fixtures. Scotland are playing Japan. We don't know if Japan are anywhere close to their World Cup form, if they can rediscover it. They certainly didn't in Dublin. That's easily the worst of the fixtures. Japan are plus 17 in that one. Scotland, I think 12-1 on to win the game. I'll just get your thoughts quickly on that one. Is there any chance Japan have beat them obviously in the World Cup and have been a bit of a bogey team for them in general? Before we get to the good games, is this one that I see any chance of a shock in?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Japan are struggling, like, aren't they? I don't know, like watching them, you know, even beforehand, walking around the Aviva Stadium, geez, lads, you know, Japan play this great style of rugby, and they're, you know, they throw it around, and if they get in behind us, they're going to cause us problems. But Ireland's defence, the line speed that they showed, they just shut off their options. And then Japan started this horrendous kicking game where if there was nothing on, they just went, oh dear, like we'll just boot it and hope for the best. And there was ricochets everywhere, and Ireland just completely dominated. And with Scotland off the back of a disappointing second half against South Africa, I would like to think that, you know, Scotland will put in a good performance and want to sign off this autumn series with an emphatic win. I see them beating the handicap as well. I think it's 17 points, is it?
17, yeah.
Yeah, 17 points. I fancy Scotland to beat that for some reason.
Fair enough, yeah. No, I can see where you're coming from for sure. And it'll be a good, like, if, you know, Scotland didn't beat South Africa, but overall, I think they'll be positive about things if they do go out and hammer Japan for their November. The 3 games that we're all looking forward to, though, on Saturday. Let's start with Wales and Australia, which is probably 2 teams that are out of form. You know, Australia haven't been very, very good recently. They poor enough game against England. Wales probably should have lost to Fiji, and that was 14 men Fiji, for even 13 men a lot of the time, but 14 for the majority of the game. Fiji are great crack. Wish we'd see more of them. I think it's their 4th game in 2 years or something like that. But Wales are they're perpetually in crisis in November, aren't they? We're writing them off. They're going loose to Australia by 10 points this weekend, and we're like, oh God, they're going to be wooden spoon contenders. And then they come out and randomly win the Six Nations again a couple of months later.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the odds for them to win the Six Nations, and it's pretty high. I think they're actually, 7th or 8th in the world rankings now?
Yeah.
Like, they've dropped down massively. But, like, Wales had some serious opportunities against New Zealand. Like, they played quite well against New Zealand at times. A couple of intercepts as well in that game. And, yeah, I fancy Wales. I do fancy Wales in this game. I fancy them to beat the handicap as well.
3 points, yeah.
Yeah, Australia aren't playing particularly well. A few injuries, bit of a front row crisis against who was it against? England, against Scotland. A few HIAs gone off, and their scrum wasn't particularly good. And against England, they looked a little bit lethargic at times. So yeah, again, I just feel that Wales are a tough side to beat in the Millennium Stadium. Or Principality. What's it called now?
Principality.
Principality. I thought it might have been another sponsor.
It might be.
It might be. Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely go for Wales there. They know how to turn it on the big occasions, and again, want to finish in a bit of a high.
Yeah. Okay. So Wales -3 there is your price on Ladbrokes that Stevie's going for. Let's go with the England game next. Then England, South Africa. I think Farrell is out for this one. South Africa are they're bloody annoyingly good at winning rugby matches, aren't they? They just there's not that much to like about them, but they're world champions. They dominated the Lions tour. They're the only Southern Hemisphere team that's showing up on the November tour. They're just annoyingly efficient and good, aren't they?
It's because they win the contact area, because they win the collisions, because they're a big side who can generally get the upper hand in set piece, get set piece dominance. If they smell blood in a certain area of the game, they go after it. Like demolition job on the Scottish scrum in the second half. Xander Fagerson was in rollerblades like for a bit of that game, and that's what they're really good at, and they showed that, of course, in the Rugby World Cup that they can get that dominance. And yeah, the other guys, Dale Ende's playing serious rugby. Pollard in at out half. I know they're missing Faf de Klerk, but they're able to have cover there. They can do a good job, and they keep kicking the ball. They keep chasing it. They keep putting huge pressure on the opposition, and they're still getting the results. But I think it's going to be slightly different against England. I just fancy this English side. It'll be interesting to see who comes out. George Ford, will he play? Just signed a contract with Seal Sharks. A lot of people didn't see that coming. Everybody thought he was going to sign on with Leicester Tigers, club captain and all that. So maybe a lot of questions coming his way this week. One foul out, but this forward pack of England, a few new faces in there as well. Ellis Gaines seemed to have cemented his place at loose head. They're a big lad. They can mix it up with physicality, and I just fancy England and Twickenham. I do. If they can get their noses in front, I fancy them. They just won out, so I went with England. Is there 1 point in the handicap?
Yeah, they're minus a point. You can get them to win the game at evens or to buy a point at 10 to 11 on Ladbrokes. So you'd win with a draw there as well. So yeah, look, it's an interesting one. It's surprising to see them as underdogs, but I suppose that, as I said, like South Africa do win matches the majority of the time, but it should be a cracker. Should be an interesting one to watch. It depends. I think it'll be a real test of whether Eddie Jones' newfound style is actually going to, if you're going to go up and do it against South Africa and be successful, then you found a new style that you're going to stick with. But I wanted to leave France and New Zealand to the last because, like, we're at the stage now where, New Zealand are 5-point favourites for this game in Ladbrokes, right? And I'm there thinking to myself, they looked absolutely shattered. Ireland played them off the park. As much as we want to praise Ireland, and we're right to, this France team has all the potential in the world to go and be the best team in the world. And it's time we almost started paying attention to that. Am I wrong? I'm just thinking, is France +5 not the bet of the century here, if you're being responsible for it?
Yeah, well, France, why do they do it to me? They shafted me at the weekend, so they did. They absolutely. I know. They were on my bet of the weekend, on my accumulator, and they let me down. It was just typical France against Georgia. Like, I think the handicap was around 40 points, and inside 30 minutes, France were leading, what was it, 21-3 or 24-3? They were leading after 30 minutes. And then France, 5-meter scrum, and Georgia end up turning the ball over, and the whistle blows for half time, and France let me down. So I think that's France in a nutshell. They either turn up, but they generally do turn up on the big occasion, specifically around World Cups as well. But this French team, there's a lot of young guys coming in there who are able to mix it, throw the ball around a bit as UA, and it's brilliant to watch. But up against the likes of New Zealand, who are pretty good at that themselves, it's going to be mouthwatering.
Yeah. Who are you going for?
I'm going for New Zealand -5 on that.
Wow. Okay. Right. So whatever about having different opinions. My sense that it's a steal is definitely right. I feel a little bit corrected there, I have to say, by you, Stevie. So that's
I think New Zealand can make 10 changes out of their team.
Yeah.
And still really mix it with them. I know they made 14 changes for the Irish game. The likes of Blackadder, making 30 tackles nearly against Ireland. I'm sure he is absolutely knackered and just wanting to get the weekend off. And there's a lot of other fellas in the same boat. So I certainly feel that New Zealand will make maybe even 7 or 8 changes that will freshen them up and see how they go against France.
All right, okay. I just wanted to mention, actually, because I forgot to earlier, I think it's important that people are going to have this on their radar. Ireland are in New Zealand in June for 3 tests, 3 weekends in a row. In some ways, the worst thing we could have done, or the best thing we could have done, was beat them this week, because they are going to be ready for us and waiting and want to teach us a lesson. And could you ask for a better test than a riled up, angry New Zealand 3 weeks in a row, a year out from the World Cup? It's it couldn't have fallen more perfect for Ireland.
Well, it's some marker, isn't it, to go down to New Zealand and try and get I think 1 test win down there would be a real achievement. Yeah. We all know what happened a few years ago. Ireland went down to New Zealand. When was it? 2012.
Yeah. 60-0.
60-0, and I know they came close to winning that second test match, but it's a great leveler and a great marker for Ireland to see where they're going to be at in the summertime. So there's plenty of rugby to be played before then. We all know there's a Six Nations that's going to be fast approaching in February. So Ireland, if they can get a good win this weekend, and they'll tee them up nicely for the Six Nations.
Yeah, so even ahead of the Six Nations, a great day's rugby this weekend. Stevie's looked ahead to it there. Ireland playing Argentina on Sunday. Stevie's gone for Argentina +13 to beat the handicap in that one on Ladbrokes.com. And then a brilliant day on Saturday where Scotland are playing Japan. We've gone for Scotland -17 there. England versus South Africa, we've gone for England +1. Wales versus Australia, Stevie's gone for Wales -3. And then France versus New Zealand, just about gone for New Zealand -5 in that one in Paris. But enjoy it. It's going to be some day on Saturday, and some weekend of rugby overall. We'll chat to you next week.
Cheers, Mick.
Thanks a million, Stevie. Of course, if you're having a bet, we mentioned odds a lot there, more than we usually do, but it's all interesting games, all a bit of fun. If you're having a bet on anything at all, please always gamble responsibly. Visit dunlewy.net for more information. We'll be back with lots more. We're going to talk to Kevin Doyle tomorrow about the weekend's football. The Premier League is back, and we might throw just a little bit of Ireland talk in there as well. Talk to you soon.